Welcome to the 21st episode of the Reading and Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Rutherford. My guest today is Warren Fahy. Fahy's first novel, a suspense novel, has been compared more than once to the late Michael Crichton. Stay tuned for my interview with Warren Fahy.
This is Lee Child, and I'm listening to the Reading and Writing Podcast.
Welcome to the Reading and Writing Podcast. Tonight, my guest is Warren Fahy, author of the book Fragment, which was published in hardback in June by Delacorte Press. Fragment, an ecological thriller, has received many rave reviews and more than one comparison to the late Michael Crichton. Warren, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Jeff. It's nice to be here.
Sure. Well, I just mentioned that Fragment is an ecological thriller. I'm wondering if you could take a moment and kind of explain the book for someone who may not have heard about it or read about it.
Well, sure. It's that's a sort of a vague category which encompasses a lot of things, and I'm sure this book stretches the envelope on that meaning. But what it's basically about is a fragment of a supercontinent which is 500 million years old and has remained isolated from all other land masses for that time. And life on board has evolved in a completely separate trajectory. When it is discovered in the modern day by a reality TV show on live television. With somewhat bloody results.
Exactly. Well, I read a lot of suspense novels, but your description of the lethal animals and creatures on Hinder's Island were extremely effective. I in fact, told someone who had also read the book that I was in the middle of reading the book one night, and my cat brushed up against my leg, and I'm pretty sure I let out a scream. So it's definitely a creepy read, and I was just curious if you remember how you got the original idea for Fragment.
Yes, I do. It was one of those ideas that just kind of hits you like a eureka moment. I was studying several things simultaneously and sort of fishing about for the idea, the concept for a novel that would be just pure fun. I'd been writing novels since I was 12 years old, and I decided, look, I just want to write the most fun and entertaining book I can think of, because a lot of my other novels were rather intense and heavy and involved, and so I thought, well, no, let's just do one for pure entertainment. And yet that was a lot harder than I thought. It took for about a year or two, I kind of mulled about different ideas, and I studied different kinds of branches of interesting science that at least interested me. And one day, while I was thinking about the Stephen Jay Gould book that I was reading, Wonderful Life, and looking at a documentary about cave discovery in Romania, where an isolated ecosystem, 5 million years old, had developed 33 completely unique species. The whole thing came together in a flash. The beginning, the middle, the end, the characters, everything. It was just an absolute epiphany.
Great. Well, I was curious when I read your bio that you wrote the script for a video game. I was curious how that came about.
Well, in my neighborhood here, I've done all kinds of odd jobs as a writer in order to make ends meet. And there was a video game company, Rockstar Games, has a subsidiary out near where I live, near San Diego. And they were advertising for writers to come on board and help and write the dialogue for a Western game, a spaghetti Western they were doing. Normally, the owners, the founders of Rockstar, write all the dialogue themselves for Grand Theft Auto and all their other games. But since they're British and this was a Western game, they wanted to farm it out and get some Western dialect that was authentic into the dialogue. So they held auditions, and a friend of mine and I entered the winning audition, and we were then given quite a lot of latitude to try and take a game that was originally developed by the Japanese. Believe it or not, it was an Oriental Western. And complete with pink dragons and all kinds of mystical, magical elements and things that just don't really belong in a Western. We were given free rein to turn it into a spaghetti Western with a plot and story and interweaving characters and so forth. And it was we wrote about 700 pages of dialogue for it.
Wow. And so had you at that point? I'm just curious. You mentioned earlier that you had been writing novels, since you were 12 years old, I think is what you said. I'm just curious. Had you also been doing screenplays, or kind of? I wonder if you could just kind of give us a sense. I mean, you mentioned you've done a lot of odd jobs. Kind of how that came about.
Yeah, I have. Nothing. Most of my writing has not been professional in terms of screenplays and novels and short stories and so forth. But I did write movie reviews for about 10 years, and thousands, probably 20,000 descriptions of movie videos and DVDs and so forth that are on the internet. As the managing editor of a database that did nothing but do that for huge databases across the internet. So that was a day job for a long time, as well as writing for the video game and writing comedy dialogue for robots, for Wowie Robotics. So, as a writer, you get work where you can.
Sure. And so you had said, as you just mentioned, I mean, you've done this variety of writing jobs, including dialogue, this extensive dialogue for the spaghetti Western video game. And then you got the idea for Fragment. I was just wondering kind of what the process or the path to publication was like for you, once you had a draft of Fragment. Did you already have an agent? Did you go out and have to find an agent?
No, I did have to go out and find an agent, and I wrote a screenplay proposal, as well as the novel, as well as a video game proposal. I decided to make it the absolutely most commercial package I could possibly make it. I was like, look, if I'm going to do something for mass appeal, then why don't I just approach it the way I would anything more highbrow, and really go for it. And I did, and damned if it didn't work. I wished I'd have done it 20 years earlier. I sent it in, and immediately an agent said, "Wow, we can work with this. This is great." And it was sent out, and on I think a Thursday or Friday, and by Tuesday there were literary scouts calling from Europe and Hollywood, and it just went right through the roof. A bidding war in London, and it's being published in 16 languages, and I mean, it was, head spinning.
Wow, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you never dreamed that would happen.
No, I did dream it would happen, which is why I was amazed that it did. Because I'm not used to that happening. Dreams coming so true. I'm used to dreaming extravagantly, but wow.
Yes. So has the movie rights sold as well? I don't want to say too much about it. Not that I can. I've been approved to say certain things, but I still don't want to, just because it's so nice, it's so great, that I just prefer to see the news kind of come out, which should be soon. So. Say that again. I didn't catch what you just said, the last thing.
Well, I don't want to actually. Even though I've been told I can go ahead and say certain things about it, I don't want to.
Okay, that's fine.
It's so nice. The news is so amazing and cool. I just kind of want it to come out and pinch myself when it does.
Sure.
So it's well on its way.
It's pending.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's perfectly fine. Hopefully all of that pans out, and we'll all hear about it soon. So. Yeah,
I think we will. So.
That's great. Well, I'm curious if you're working on another novel now, and could you give us a sense of what that novel might be like? Excuse me, and if it might be another ecological thriller or going in a different direction completely.
Well, I working on actually a sequel right now to Fragment, and so that will be coming up soon, and also I've got at least 2 or 3 other projects with some pretty surprising subject matter, I imagine, but they're all novels.
Mm-hmm.
And then close on those heels, or even, I'm not sure which order, will be another thriller, set in the 5 minutes into the future sort of thriller.
Oh, okay.
But of a completely different subject than Fragment.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, lots and lots of stuff.
Cool. Now, I'm curious, as I mentioned earlier, there have been a lot of comparisons to Michael Crichton for Fragment, just in terms of the scientific extrapolation and suspense. I'm just curious, what writers do you enjoy reading? When you get the chance.
Well, I love Crichton. Crichton's great. I mean, it's so much fun. I love to learn things when I'm reading fiction too. Unless if I'm reading fantasy or something like that, I generally tend towards the real classic stuff, just because it's the language is beautiful, and I'm not into just sort of pop, too much pop stuff. I prefer classics of any kind of genre. I read. I love reading like Conan Doyle.
Sure.
Great writers like that who just really framed language and their descriptions of characters and action so well. And I love great writers like Hemingway, and so it's. I don't really stick to a lot of new writers, I guess.
Gotcha.
And if I do, if like say Martin Amis comes out with something, I'll read that just because it's a feast.
Sure. Sure.
That kind of stuff.
Cool. Well, I'm curious, given your varied background and leading up to the great success that Fragment has been, I'm wondering if you have any advice for someone who may be an aspiring writer or someone who's working on a novel of their own.
Well, yeah. If it can happen for me, I tell you, I had worked, so long and through really quite a bit of adversity. I wasn't able to take advantage of some of the opportunities that a lot of writers get an opportunity to take advantage of. But I still worked through it. If you really love it, nothing can stop you. At 17, I was out on my own, didn't have a prayer in hell of going to college because of certain situations, and was working at McDonald's and living in a garage and writing at night and sleeping next to a car. And I worked from there. I became, at 19, the manager of a bookstore, and then from there I got a job at a publishing company and became a statistical analyst, and then got a job as a word processor and lied my way in, claiming I could use a Lexitron 2000 computer, which I couldn't, in order to teach myself how to do that. And managed to get myself through a semester and a half of worth of college, which I then had to leave because I ran out of money. And then worked as a word processor, and then got a job as an editor, and then became managing editor of a database of video journalists. Mm-hmm. And so all the way through, that was decade and a half, I guess, of writing at night and doing all that, and never stopping. And so, just because it was my absolute love. And if you don't absolutely love writing, my advice is don't.
That's some good advice. Great. Well, that's all that I had. I don't know if you have anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to discuss regarding Fragment or what you're working on now.
Well, what I'm working on now is going to be a whole lot of fun. I think that people who finish reading Fragment will have a blast reading the next book. So other than that, I'd just like to say this is a great podcast. You guys, you do a great job.
Great. Thanks a lot. Well, again, we've been speaking to Warren Fahy. He's the author of Fragment, a new ecological thriller that was published in June by Delacorte Press. It's available now in hardback at your local bookstore or an online bookstore. And where can they find you online to find more information about you and the book?
Go to warrenfahy.com, and that's, once again, Fahy, without the E.
Great.
warrenfahy.com.
Okay, well, great. Thanks a lot, Warren. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
All right. Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Sure.
This is David Morrell, and when I'm not working on my latest thriller, I'm listening to the Reading and Writing Podcast.
Thanks for listening to my latest interview. If you like what you heard, I would really appreciate a review of the podcast in iTunes. It's really simple. All you have to do is go to the iTunes store, and it takes a minute or two to leave a quick review of the podcast. And that way more people can find the podcast, because the more reviews and ratings a podcast has in the iTunes store, the more they feature it and the more prominently they feature it. So hope you enjoyed the interview. Until next time, read some good books and support your local independent bookstore, and I'll be back soon with another interview with a writer that you enjoy reading.
There are so many reasons not to skip breakfast. So many savory, mouth-watering, tasty, delicious beyond all belief reasons. Actually, that last one was pretty convincing. Stop by for a McDonald's breakfast. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McMuffin, sausage burrito, or hash browns, any two for just $2. Price and participation may vary, cannot be combined with combo meal.
You promise your child they can grow up to become who they want to be. We know college is expensive, but upromise.com lets you save extra money for your child's future by doing the everyday things you already do. Save for college when shopping online or even on your weekly grocery store runs. Link any college savings plan with a free uPromise account for worry-free college savings deposited each month. Sign up today at upromise.com for a $30 welcome bonus. Start now at upromise.com.